Welcome to the Matt Bernier Show.
What's happening? Welcome in the Matt Bernier Show, DRFTV, live.drf.com, as well as livestream.com if you're checking us out on social media, Twitter, Facebook. Thank you for doing so. If you check this thing out podcast version, we've got YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com. Plenty of ways for you to find the show. My name is Matt Bernier. You can follow me on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. Any questions, comments, concerns, anything that you just want to fire off about in the world of racing or sports or just life advice in general, just anything you want to talk about, fire away at me on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. Today's show, predominantly 3-year-olds. I'm about a week late. I said 5 weeks ago that we were going to do sort of progress reports for the 3-year-olds every 4 weeks leading up to the first Saturday in May. We got a little bit bogged down last weekend just with a lot of different things going on and our sponsor at Turfway Park, and we had to make sure everything was situated there. So we're a little bit late. We're 5 weeks after the first set of progress reports, but we're going to dive into those today. That's what the main topic of the show is going to be. But before we get to the 3-year-olds, we have to acknowledge the best horse in the world currently. No disrespect to Winks down in Australia, but Arrogate right now is just on a different level than really anything we've seen in a little while, maybe with the exception of American Pharoah, what he accomplished winning the Triple Crown. But as far as just stringing together giant race on top of giant race on all the biggest stages at 3 different tracks, 2 different continents, it's Arrogate's world. We're all just living in it. This is the Dubai World Cup from the top of the lane.
Run at the 400. Gun Runner's 2 lengths clear from the elliptic. Arrogate's coming home down the outside. Gun Runner in front. Arrogate's picking him up on the outer though. Arrogate surged to the lead from Gun Runner. The world's best horse. The Breeders' Cup World Champion. The Pegasus World Cup winner. The world's richest ever horse in 8 starts. The $10 million Group 1 Emirates Airline Dubai World Cup goes to Arrogate. The world's best.
Now that stretch run doesn't truly do justice for what we saw Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, depending on where you were, Saturday night even, if you watched it live out in Dubai. The stretch run doesn't do it justice. Now the horse was geared down and he won by open lengths comfortably over Gun Runner, who has turned into a tremendous, tremendous racehorse. But, and the reason I'm not spending a ton of time on this race is because at this point it's a week later almost, and all of us know the trials and tribulations of what happened with Arrogate. But the start, the fact that he overcame all of that, displaying a running style he's never, ever employed or ever used in a race. And Mike Smith never panicked once aboard this horse. And the fact that he won for fun, and when you look at the way the race set up on paper and the way the race was run, runners 2 through 6, they basically ran 1 through 5 until Arrogate came and picked them off one by one. This is a horse that is just, you know, the superlatives, you run out of things to say about him other than he just is kind of a freak. Let's start off with his horse card. This is obviously all sorts of things up to date. You can just take a look at the connections here. What else is there to say? Bob Baffert has done a tremendous job with this horse. Probably a blessing in disguise that he had a little bit of ouchiness and he missed the Triple Crown, because I think if you run him through those races, 3 races in 5 weeks, early on as a 3-year-old, we probably don't get to see what we've seen at this stage in the game. But some of the numbers, particularly, and again, credit to Juddmonte, they own this horse. Clear Sky has just been breeding tremendous racehorses on top of tremendous racehorses. And again, Mike Smith, cool as a cucumber in the saddle, never panicked. The big piece that we need to focus on is right at the bottom of the screen. And we're going to sort of transition into his PPs updated recently, including the Dubai World Cup. He's started 8 times in less than a year. He's won 7 of them. He lost his debut going 6 furlongs, much too short at Los Alamitos, a quirky racetrack. He's earned $17 million. I get that we're in a different world and a different time where now you've got not only a $10 million race, but you have a $12 million race in the Pegasus World Cup. But the things that this horse has done in such a short amount of time, I don't think we've ever seen it before. Mike Watchmaker's Sunday column, if you don't read it, I would suggest it to anyone and everyone. I thought he laid it out perfectly. This is sort of the new standard for the modern thoroughbred, where the amount of things that have happened in such a short amount of time, knowing that we don't, the days of past years are long, long gone. We're not going to see horses run 40 times anymore and accumulate all these just tremendous stats. We know we have a condensed window for them to run in. Let's just be hopeful that Arrogate continues to move on and the connections see fit to go on with him. Sounds like he's going to get back to Santa Anita tomorrow afternoon. But the things that we've seen from this horse in a short amount of time, I hope they're not lost on people. because we saw greatness 2 years ago with American Pharoah winning the Triple Crown, winning the Breeders' Cup Classic. But this horse is doing things that American Pharoah didn't even do. And look, in fairness, Arrogate didn't do things that American Pharoah did. I mean, American Pharoah won the Triple Crown for the first time in 37 years. But the things that Arrogate has done against older horses all over the country, all over the world at this stage in the game, really, really something to behold. And again, there were some trolls, and I'm going to call you trolls on Twitter, that were saying, oh, it's not that good, not that good. If you don't appreciate what you saw Saturday afternoon in the Dubai World Cup from a truly great horse, then I can't help you. You don't know what greatness looks like. I think all of us, whether you're a fan of whatever it may be, you should just stop and appreciate greatness. And that's what we're seeing right now with Arrogate. Hopefully we get to see him at least once, if not twice more, before it's all said and done. And he goes off and starts his second career as a stallion. We're going to take a break here on the Matt Bernier Show. Again, DRFTV, live.drf.com, livestream.com. When we come back, really the focus of this show is going to be the 3-year-olds. It is progress report number 2. We're going to see how everyone's faring on the road to the Kentucky Derby. Stay with us.
Does your online wagering platform want you to win? If they did, wouldn't they help you win? At DRF Bets, we're all about raising your game. That's why we give our players the data, tools, and know-how that no other service can. For starters, DRF Bets is the only place you can get free DRF PPs when you wager. But we don't stop at PPs. With free access to DRF Plus, DRF Bets members get the kind of insider...
California Chrome, straight and strong. Absolutely sensational. California Chrome. California Chrome. To California Chrome. All the way to the Kentucky Derby. California Chrome wins impressively.
He's gone into overdrive. California Chrome wins the Dubai World Cup.
One of the greatest performances you'll ever see.
Chrome turns to gold.
12:07 on the east, 9:07 on the west. It's the Matt Bernier Show, DRFTV, live.drf.com, livestream.com, Twitter and Facebook if you're watching live. And obviously the podcast, you have YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com. This is the focus of this show this week. We are on the 3-year-olds and the progress reports. And if you have watched this show all throughout, and I got some good feedback when I did this the first time 5 weeks ago, it was just sort of an interesting exercise to see not necessarily what we think of these horses going forward, just up until this point, what we're looking at as far as these 3-year-olds are concerned and trying to get into the starting gate the first Saturday in May in the Kentucky Derby. So the way that we've tweaked this a little bit is we have the list of horses 1 through 25 as far as the points are concerned in descending order. So right now your number 1 horse listed is Thunder Snow because he has 100 points to his name. You're going to see the connections, and you're also going to see a grade. What I consider at this stage in the game, if you're trying to get to the Kentucky Derby, how well you're faring, for better or for worse. Some horses have high grades, some have rather low grades. And we'll take them maybe not one by one, maybe we'll bounce around a little bit, but for the next 12, 13 minutes, that's what we're going to do. We're going to go through these 25 horses. Let's start off by looking at the list, 1 through 25. Let's start off 1 through 10. You're going to see Thunder Snow is at the top. You have Saeed Ben Sarur, who's the trainer, and he's done some good things here in North America. And he has 100 points, and I have the grades in the far right column. I'm going to give him a B+ because he's gone out and he's done what he's needed to do. And you can go right through, and I'll just run them down briefly, really quick for you. Gunnevera, number 2 on the points list. I gave him an A-. Taproot, a B+. J-Boy's Echo, a B. Hence, a B. Malegacy, an A. Fast and Accurate, a B. Gervin, an A. Practical Joke, a B+. Untrapped, B- as we change over to 11 through 20. You have Classic Empire, gave him a D. Gormley, C+. State of Honor, B. Conquest Mo Money, B+. McCracken, B. Master Plan, B. Iliad, B. Sonneteer, B-. Blue Ridge Traveler, B+. Cloud Computing, B+. And then we change over to 21 through 25. Wild Shot, C+. Guess Sweet, B. Petrov, C+. IRAP, C-. Looking at Lee, B-. So you're probably wondering, where the heck are you pulling these grades from? Yeah, there's no sort of formula for this. It's just kind of the way that I'm feeling about all of them. And I can explain some of these that look a little bit sort of wonky maybe to those of you that are watching or listening. Let's start off. We'll throw up the horse card for Thunder Snow. The reason I gave Thunder Snow the B+, and I kind of tipped my hand a little bit, is because at this point, he's raced on dirt twice in his career. He's unbeaten on dirt. He's 2 for 2, and he was ultra game winning the UAE Derby. The UAE Derby awards 100 points to the winner, And that's as far as Kentucky Derby qualifying points are concerned. So he goes on with it. And it sounds like the connections are certainly weighing the possibility of shipping him across the Atlantic over here. I think it would be interesting if he did come, but keep in mind, this is a Group 1 winner on turf as a 2-year-old, and he's bred for the turf beautifully. So it wouldn't be a stunner to me to see him stay home and stay in Europe. But if he comes over here, if the goal is the Kentucky Derby, or if that's what this progress report is all about, he gets a B+. He's done what he's needed to do. Gunnavera, the same exact thing. I can't give him an A because he hasn't been brilliant, but all he does is go out and run his race. I gave him an A-. We'll find out. Things will change for better or for worse, or maybe they stay the same. Tomorrow afternoon in the Florida Derby, we'll talk about that and the Louisiana Derby later on in the show. He gets an A-. Taproot for Todd Pletcher. Took him a little while to put things together, but boy, all of a sudden, he looks like he's a primetime contender. We'll give him a B+. Legacy may be the one that some people might not agree with, giving him a flat A, particularly because the race that he exits didn't look all that appealing on paper. The fig came back slow. The reason I'm giving him an A is because all of the things put together. And I'm still hanging on to that fact that he was supposed to debut for $75,000, a claiming tag and a maiden claimer. They withdrew him. They run him back in a maiden special weight race. Then there are concerns about how far ultimately he's going to want to go. Well, he gets the job done in the Rebel beautifully, $900,000 purse. I have no knock there. He gets 50 points winning that race, so really now this final prep is just to make sure that he's ready to go the first Saturday in May. He doesn't need any more points. We're going to take a look at his horse card right now. He's done nothing wrong. He's 3 for 3. He has top-notch connections, Pletcher and Castellano. You see Shackelford. I'm a little bit dubious how far ultimately he's going to want to go. He's going to need to relax a little bit more than he did down in the Rebel, but what is there to knock about what he's done thus far? I would question and challenge anyone to tell me, okay, maybe he's run a little slow and he needs to improve. I'm not denying that, but at this stage in the game, with your eye set on the first Saturday in May, I can't help but give him an A. I'm not going to give him an A+. I think A+ are foolish. I think it's an A. An A is all you get as far as the top earnings and top marks, and I think Legacy thus far, I think he deserves an A, again, considering you're trying to get to the first Saturday in May. Another one to talk about with an A, the only other A on this list, flat out A anyway, is Gervin. We're going to also see him tomorrow afternoon in the Louisiana Derby at the Fairgrounds. He gets a flat A from me simply because he's done little wrong as well. His one loss was by 3/4 of a length, and it came on turf. And he ran on the turf not by design. They wanted to run him on the dirt, but this race showed up. They had to get a race into him before going on to the Risen Star, and he ran very well in the Risen Star. A little bit goofy with the lead changes, but I don't want to hold that against him. I think he's just kind of figuring things out. He's going to get an assist tomorrow afternoon from what should be a pace setter, an uncoupled stablemate in Hotfoot on the far outside. I have nothing to knock about Gervin. I don't love him. He's not sexy. He's not brilliant. But at this stage in the game, what's he done wrong? And guess what? He has his 50 Derby points. He's in the starting gate. There's no denying that. And that's why you got to give him a little bit of extra credit. I give him an A as well. Let's take a quick look again just at the top 10, because now I'm going to transition into 11 through 20. But the top 10 list right now, this is, again, right through 1 through 10, and it's just simply in descending order as far as points earned. And those are the grades on the far right-hand column. Naturally, they're all relatively good. The reason I have B- for Untrapped, I'm sure they were looking for a little bit more at that mile and the 16th in the Rebel, and unfortunately, maybe he's just not quite as good routing. Maybe he needs a turn back. We move on to 11 through 20, and this is where things get a little bit dicey, I think, for some of these horses. Let's take a look at the list of 11 through 20 for the folks that are watching and following along here. Classic Empire is 11th with 32 points. He has his spot in the Kentucky Derby. I gave him a D. That is the lowest grade on the list. I could have easily given him an F, let's be honest. It's been a disaster, his 3-year-old campaign thus far, but I'm not ready to give up on him completely, and that's why I gave him didn't give him an F. If I gave him an F, I basically would have just been writing him off, saying he has no chance. This horse can prove a lot. Now, he has a lot going against him, in my opinion. He's refused to train. His one start thus far has been terrible, and now he's been bumped back an extra week to the Arkansas Derby, which will be run 2 weeks from Saturday. That's a lot to throw at a horse in a short amount of time, particularly when it's a quick turn back for the Kentucky Derby, a horse that has been his own worst enemy. We know he's brilliant talent-wise. He just needs to figure things out. He needs to mature a little bit. The reason, again, I didn't give him an F because I know on his best day he can beat basically all of these horses. We saw that as a 2-year-old. He's just been a major, major problem child. I can't help but give him a D thus far. Didn't fail him outright. but he gets a D for me as far as his progress report for the first Saturday in May. Gormley gets a C+ because his run down in the most recent race that we saw him in, not very good. That was at Santa Anita, and he just got absolutely buried. Now again, Mastery would have been an A+. I said I don't give A+. Mastery would have been an A+, because they had planned this thing out perfectly. We only wanted 2 preps into him, and then have him sitting on go for the Kentucky Derby, and he buried the field in his prep, his only prep, unfortunately, as far as a 3-year-old's campaign is concerned, because he got hurt. But Gormley was done. With about a quarter of a mile to go, he was all out, and he was taking on water. He was sinking badly. I think Gormley, it was very disappointing. He's going to have an opportunity next week in the Santa Anita Derby to kind of right the ship, and maybe that moves him forward. Maybe I'm a little bit kinder when we do the final progress report, and that's going to come up just before the Kentucky Derby. But right now, I have no choice but to give him a C+. That was a very disappointing effort, in my opinion. Conquest Mo Money, gave him a B+, because this is your sort of rare bargain for an Uncle Mo. I believe they paid $8,500 for him. And he most recently ran second in the Sunland Derby. And they're going to supplement him. I don't blame the connections. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Big dollars, $200,000 to get him involved. I don't look at him and say, oh my goodness, he's a major contender for the Derby. But why wouldn't you take a shot with a horse like this? I give him a B+. He got 20 points. He needs to get a few more probably. He's on the bubble right now anyway. Probably needs to get some more, and I believe they're going to run him in the Arkansas Derby. If he doesn't get any more and he still somehow sneaks in, yeah, B+. I have no knocks against this horse. I think the connections deserve to go on. Have fun with it. Also, don't expect that you're going to win the Kentucky Derby. I mean, anything is possible. We've seen that. But I think this horse, he's done some good things. He's 3 for 4 lifetime. Give him a B+. McCracken, another polarizing horse. We're going to take a look at his horse card right now. He has 20 points for Ian Wilkes. I gave him a B. Simply because, now look, he hasn't done anything wrong, but at the same time, we haven't seen him since the Sam F. Davis, and that was quite some time ago. He's been flattered by what Tappert came back to do in the Tampa Bay Derby, in my opinion. Now he goes on to the Bluegrass, where he's likely to be one of the choices, if not the outright choice, but he'll be facing some legitimate company. He'll be facing Tappert. He'll be facing J. Boy Zecco. It'll be interesting to see. He'll be facing Practical Joke for Chad Brown. This is an interesting horse. He's unbeaten. He's 4 for 4. He's proven at Churchill Downs. Distance should be his friend. The reason he doesn't get an A or an A- or even a B+ from me is because he had that little hiccup as far as training is concerned, a little bit of filling in the ankle. Ian Wilkes did right by the horse, took some time, made sure everything was good to go before rushing him back. And looks like all systems going toward the Bluegrass next weekend at Keeneland. So I'm not going to give him an A. I mean, I don't think he can at this point because of that training issue, but he has every chance anyway to right the ship, move up in a big way, not just from a point standpoint, but from an overall grade standpoint. I think that makes him very interesting if he goes out and does what he's supposed to do in the Bluegrass in Lexington next weekend. The rest of 11 through 20, I think you've got a couple of interesting ones. Blue Ridge Traveler, I gave him a B+, just simply because, I mean, this is a horse that I don't think anyone has illusions of roses being draped over him after the race is over late on Saturday night, the first Saturday in May. But again, considering what he had looked like on the racetrack to where he is now, where he's basically a bubble boy with 20 points for the Derby, I have no choice but to give him a B+. Cloud computing can go a long way to not just elevating his status, I think, as far as many people's Derby sort of lists are concerned, but he can also move up just strictly from a point standpoint. He looks like he's going to be running in the Wood next Saturday at Aqueduct. I gave him a B+. This is a horse who's raced twice, and he's done some good things both times. I'm terrified of the McLean's music whenever that's going to jump up and nip him in the bud, but at the end of the day, he hasn't done anything wrong. He's impressive. He looks nice. Okay, he was no match for J. Boy Zecco, but first time 2 turns, he was close to the pace. He came on with his run. I think Cloud Computing is very interesting for Chad Brown. Let's move on to 21 through 25. Now, these boys are going to need some help if they're going to get into the starting gate, and luckily they all have some time here. But now you see the grades change a little bit. Wild Shot, I gave him a C+ because I'm convinced he's a one-turn horse. Guess Sweet, we'll see him tomorrow afternoon in Louisiana Derby. I gave him a B because he's just kind of a grinder, let's say. He's never going to blow you away. He needs more points, no question about it. But if I'm Neil Howard and I'm the connections, the owners, and I'm a fan of this horse, as I am, I'm content tomorrow. Run second. You don't need to win that race. I know it's $1 million, and I'm not suggesting they don't want to win it, but just get the points because his pedigree suggests he's going to run all day. I think they would be very, very pleased if he just takes a step forward there. Petrov, C+. I don't think he wants to go this far. I can't help but give him sort of a lower grade simply because of that. IRAP is a maiden, And I think he's just been completely thrown to the wolves, and it sounds like they're going to continue on throwing him to the wolves. I disagree with it, but at the end of the day, he's not my horse. That's why he has a C-. And looking at Lee, B+, I expected a little bit more from him in the Rebel. I thought he ran just fine, don't get me wrong, and it sounds like Steve Asmussen is very high on the idea of stretching him out to 1 1/8 and even farther than that, 1 1/4. I like the horse. I think he has some ability, but he's always going to be at the mercy of pace and trip as a one-run closer, and at the end of the day, he needs more points. Before we wrap this up, let's take a look at the 3 lists one more time, 1 through 25. At the top, Thunder Snow, give him a B+. The big grades here on this list anyway. The 2, Gunnevera, I gave him an A-. We'll see him in the Florida Derby, and we'll talk about him momentarily. The 6 with 50 points is Malegacy. I gave him a flat-out A. The 8, Gervin for Joe Sharp with 50 points. An A as we turn the page to 11 through 20. You're going to see this is when we get some hiccups. Classic Empire, can't help but give him a D. Gormley, C+. Then you got a couple interesting ones sneaking around there, particularly the 20, Cloud Computing with 20 points for Chad Brown with a B+. And then we move on to 21 through 25. Wild Shot, a C+, because I don't believe he wants to go this far. Guess Sweet, don't give up on him, folks. I think he's going to be an interesting one going forward. I gave him a B. And looking at Lee, rounds things out with 12 points, a B-. Those horses, 21 through 25, and if we're being completely honest, probably 14 through 25. They all need to do a little bit more to guarantee their spot in the starting gate the first Saturday in May at Churchill Downs in the Kentucky Derby. Progress report number 2, done. We'll check back in probably 3 or 4 weeks from now after all the major preps are done, and we'll reassess everyone getting ready for the Kentucky Derby. We're going to take a break. When we come back, speaking of the Kentucky Derby, the final big preps in Florida and Louisiana coming up tomorrow afternoon, the Louisiana Derby, the Florida Derby. We'll go over both of them. The Matt Bernier Show. Stay with us.
Does your online wagering platform want you to win? If they did, wouldn't they help you win? At DRF Bets, we're all about raising your game. That's why we give our players the data, tools, and know-how that no other service can. For starters, DRF Bets is the only place you can get free DRF PPs when you wager. But we don't stop at PPs. With free access to DRF Plus, DRF Bets members get the kind of insider...
California Chrome, straight and strong. Absolutely sensational. California Chrome. California to California Chrome. Away to the Kentucky Derby. California Chrome wins impressively.
He's gone into overdrive. California Chrome wins the Dubai World Cup.
One of the greatest performances you'll ever see.
Chrome turns to gold.
Say goodbye to your inner caveman. If you're making caveman bets on pick sixes, you could be leaving money on the table. DRF Bets Ticketmaker helps you build more profitable exotic bets and place them with one click. Raise your game with DRF Bets Ticketmaker. Be a samurai with your ROI. DRF Bets Ticketmaker helps you cut out unprofitable exotic bets before they happen and be the master of profits. Raise your game with DRF Bets Ticketmaker, the exotic wagering app.
Well, the amazing thing about our work was just how similar he is to Uncle Mo. I mean, right away of all of Rapoli's babies, he stood out as the most advanced, the most precocious, and the most talented, and that was exactly the same thing we'd seen a few years before with Uncle Mo.
Outwork wins it for John Velasquez.
To be able to win a Grade 1 like the Wood Memorial in only his 4th lifetime start was very impressive.
It is Outwork in front.
$12.23 on the East, $9.23 on the West. The Matt Bernier Show on DRFTV, live.drf.com, livestream.com. Let's take a look. We're only going to go over 2 races this week, and we're not going to review what I did last weekend. Usually, as the sort of customary flow of this show is concerned, we go back and we review, for better or for worse, how last weekend went. I wanted to get the progress reports, and I wanted to take time with those, so we don't have time to go back and review. Spoiler alert, wasn't that good. Let's hope that these 2 races are a little bit better. The Louisiana Derby and the Florida Derby. Let's start off at the fairgrounds. You've got a field of 9 3-year-olds that are going to go 1 1/8 miles. It's $1 million. Scheduled post time 6:21 Eastern on a full day of racing at the fairgrounds in Louisiana. You can see, if you're new to this thing, on the far right side, those are my odds. It's a value line. I'll take them right in order if you're just listening. The 1 Patch, 6-1. The 2 Hollywood Handsome, 49-1. Local Hero, 4-1. Senior Investment, 13-1. Monaco, 24-1. Guest Suite, 3-1. Sorry Eric, 24-1. Gervin, 3-1. Hotfoot, 99-1. It's an interesting race. I expected a heck of a lot more. It seems like in recent years we've had bigger fields that go in the Louisiana Derby because it hasn't been the sturdiest, let's say. Even though you've had one horse that really dominated last year, it was Gun Runner 2 years ago, it was International Star, it just seemed like they weren't scaring anybody away. This year, look, Gervin is a very nice horse. I have nothing to knock about him. I talked about it in the progress report. All he does is go out and do his job. His one loss came on turf by 3/4 of a length to a nice little turf horse in Cool Cowboy. Otherwise, he's 2 for 2 on dirt. The distance shouldn't be a problem. He got a little bit goofy with his leads down the lane, but I don't think that's a problem. I think he's just kind of figuring things out a little bit. Joe Sharp has done a very good job. The important thing to remember, and he is what I'm considering the most likely winner tomorrow in the Louisiana Derby. But the important thing to remember about Gervin tomorrow is he doesn't need to win. Tomorrow is a means to an end. They've got their points. They're just trying to get him fine-tuned and ready to go for the Kentucky Derby. Doesn't mean you're not going to try to win $1 million race. Don't get me wrong. But would it be a stunner if he lost? No, I wouldn't be stunned. I think he is the most likely winner. I also wouldn't be stunned if he wasn't fully cranked up, if he was about 85% and they were content with a good second. My pick in the race, Guess Sweet. I really like him quite a bit. I think this is a horse, whether he wins or loses tomorrow, distance is only going to be his friend. And in a year that is as topsy-turvy as this year has been as far as the Triple Crown Trail going up to the Kentucky Derby is concerned, I feel like Guess Sweet is the kind of horse that if he just gets there, he's going to have a puncher's chance because I feel like he'll run all day. I made him 3-1. But the most likely winner, in my opinion, for the Louisiana Derby is Gervin. Let's move on to the Florida Derby, the main event. It's the only Grade 1 of the weekend down at Gulfstream Park. You've got a field of 11. Let's take a look at that field if we could. You have the sort of usual suspects. You have Gunnavera, you have 3 Rules, but we'll take them right in order for you. State of Honor, 6-1. Talk Logistics, 49-1. Charlie the Greek, 99-1. Always Dreaming, 3-1. Kinientos, 32-1. Coleman Rocky, 99-1. Unbridled Holiday, 99-1. Impressive Edge, 8-1. As we turn the page, 9 through 11. Battalion Runner, likely to scratch, so I did not include him in my line. Basically draw a line through him. 3 Rules, 6-1. And Gunnavera, 5-2. You have a number of horses that I think are just terribly overmatched. So as much as this race looks like it's a full field of 11, I mean, contenders, I think there might be 3 or 4. I think the most likely winner by far is Gunnavera, and we're going to take a look at his run in the Fountain of Youth most recently. He had a beautiful setup in this race. You see 3 Rules, who's also in this race down on the inside. You see Practical Joke, who we'll see next weekend, it sounds like, in the Bluegrass. And on the outside, Gunnavera just comes right over the top. Javier learned something on this horse 2 starts back. Said, you know what, we're not going to be able to come and stay that close. We want to make this horse do his thing, his one run. He has nice agility for a one-run closer, but you're still going to take him back and make that move. I think he's the most likely winner in the race. The outside post doesn't bother me whatsoever. The interesting thing is, similarly to what we just talked about with Gervin, and I think this is something to just keep in the back of your mind for all of these final preps, the connections certainly want to win them, particularly the Grade 1 variety. So a race like the Florida Derby, simply because Grade 1, you're a stallion. Maybe the Grade 2s, they've been knocked down a little bit, and that's just a conversation that I don't have any interest in even getting involved in. But the Wood and the Bluegrass are now Grade 2s. The Arkansas Derby is still a Grade 1. The Grade 1s probably have a little bit more onus on them because you can make a stallion. The Grade 2s, you could have stallions out of that, don't get me wrong, but the G1 goes a long way. But keep in mind the horses that are locked into the Derby. These final preps are not the end-all be-all. As long as they come with a good run, as long as they don't throw a disaster, then I think the connections are all pleased. You want to win the races, obviously. If Gunnavera doesn't win tomorrow, but he comes with his honest effort, as he always does, a good second or third, I'm not going to think any less of the horse. If he wins, I probably won't think any differently of him. I think he's an honest horse who's going to show up and run his race. I picked Always Dreaming in here for Pletcher. I just find it very, very odd. Battalion Runner, this has been the race circled for him all along. And then all of a sudden, Always Dreaming starts putting things together. Then they reroute Battalion Runner. And it's not like Battalion Runner has missed any time. He's been working steadily. So I think this is a very positive move for Always Dreaming in the Pletcher barn. But most likely winner in the race, I believe, is indeed Gunnavera. 12:29 in the east, 9:29 in the west. We're going to wrap things up here on the Matt Bernier Show. Again, out of the gate, we are going on to our second or third episode, I believe, of Out of the Gate. It's going to be live on the page on video.drf.com later on this afternoon. I say later on this afternoon. It should be up shortly if you're watching this live. Again, video.drf.com. You can find it on YouTube as well, Out of the Gate. We'll go through all sorts of different good racing across the country, and you're going to see from all the familiar folks, myself, Dan Illman, Mike Beard, Nicole Russo, you name it, they're all on there. They come through, they offer up some good opinions, both on pedigree and just strictly from a handicapping standpoint. So you're going to want to stay involved. Watch Out of the Gate. This is the third episode of the show, and we're going to have it up every Friday going forward, video.drf.com, as well as YouTube. If you watch us live, the Matt Bernier Show, you can follow me on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. If you watched it on live.drf.com or livestream.com, thank you for doing so. On social media, Twitter, Facebook, good on you. If you check it out, podcast, YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com.